Tim. No.
Come on, Tim.
Yup.
Be the giraffe that you are, Tim. You've so many
My hands are sweating. My hands are sweating. You stupid bitch!
In the middle, you win. No, you went the wrong way.
So ReZero recently got a second season to their anime in the summer of 2020, which is good because I personally like ReZero, and it's nice to see Subaru back in action because we all know, ReZero has been a complete fun time.
I have seen some shit, man. I kid you not, I have seen some shit.
Because of that, I rewatched the first season of ReZero alongside my friends to prepare myself for the second season, cause, might as well. And during that time I was rewatching season 1, I was able to witness a roller coaster of emotions throughout the entire season, with episode 18 in particular being really good upon my rewatching of the show. It was an episode where I felt that the show was finally able to show emotion and character development for Subaru and Rem that I felt was lacking until then. After finishing my rewatch of ReZero, I was very much hyped and excited for Season 2, and I've been watching ReZero Season 2 weekly ever since it started airing, and I have to say, the first few episodes were very strong, with Rem's disappearance and everyone forgetting about her a very strong start. I mean, just look at the amount of Who's Rem memes plaguing the ReZero fanbase. I mean, come on guys, does anyone not remember Rem at all? Episode 18? No one? Oh well, I guess. As I watch ReZero weekly, I started to feel more invested in the story, just as I have when I first watched Season 1. But then, Season 2 Episode 4 happened, and I was left starstruck. ReZero had given me what I considered to be another amazing episode. But one thing I noticed is that what made Episode 18 so great to me is what I felt made Season 2 Episode 4 of ReZero amazing as well. It was an episode where I was still shocked and honestly at loss of words, but one thing that I can describe it was that it had heart. That's it. Anyway, without further ado, this is why ReZero Episode 18 and Season 2 Episode 4 are absolutely amazing episodes, and what I consider to be the heart and the soul of the series. Episode 18 starts off with Puck killing Betelgeuse on the spot, and him explaining to Subaru on how and why he has failed, and proceeds to just kill him right there and then as well. After Subaru dies, he uses Return by Death to go back to when he was with Rem at the market. He then apologizes for what he did before and talks to Rem about wanting to leave Lagunica and inviting her along, and the rest of the episode is just the two of them talking. That's it. Talking. That's all they do. Nothing else. No walking around or doing anything. They just show face shots and body shots of them talking to each other. And yet, this is the episode that fully grabbed my attention, fully caught my interest, and fully got me committed to the story, even though nothing eventful is physically happening. Heck, the only time when they actually move or do something is when Rem kisses Subaru and he hugs her at the end. But that's not the point of the episode. What makes this episode really good isn't the action or the gore of the fight scenes, the progression of the plot, or even the revelation of some hidden plot twist that the author was planning. No, it was none of that. It was just two characters having a genuine and heartfelt conversation. It didn't do anything particularly unique. This isn't the first time Subaru has vented, is what I thought to myself as I watched the episode, and yet this time it's different. This time it stung more than usual. Prior to this episode, while I had thought Subaru was an interesting character, I certainly was a bit annoyed with his character due to the dumb decisions he was making, and the show was also certainly not helping him by always making him look bad, showing us the perspective of other characters thinking that he's an absolute piece of shit. But this time's different. For this time, there's someone who accepts Subaru for what he is and tolerates him despite his flaws. This wasn't a moment when Subaru developed as a character. It was a moment when he became human, at least in my eyes. It was right at that moment where Subaru felt like a real human being. And at that moment, all my feelings of annoyance and disappointment within his character suddenly changed into sympathy. Something I never thought I would feel for Subaru with the way he was written early on. But that's how I feel. Sympathy. Until then, Subaru had been suffering for several episodes with no real way to vent out all his emotions, which was frustrating for Subaru and caused him to do dumb stuff. But it was also frustrating for me as a viewer because him doing dumb stuff is not fun and kinda is annoying, as I said before. So when Rem had finally calmed and accepted all his feelings of anger and disappointment, that feeling also resonated with me, and I'd felt as if a weight had been lifted from my shoulders. Episode 4 of Season 2 also does something similar to that of Episode 18, where the entire episode is focused on the dialogue between Subaru and his parents. And once again, it was able to catch my attention and maintain it. Though this time, Subaru was more sad and disappointed with himself rather than the world around him. Even though his conversation with Rem and his parents are similar in many ways, I feel that this episode brought something unique to Subaru that we haven't seen prior to this episode. Up till now, we've only seen Subaru deal with issues that he had to deal with recently, only when he traveled to another world. But now we dive into issues that have been plaguing him, that have been ruining him for his entire life, and only now have we seen what Subaru is like and what problems he had, because these aren't problems that Subaru had because he was teleported to another world. These are problems that he had before the series even begun. And being able to see him cope with his past and move on was extremely touching. There are a lot of things that both of these episodes achieve, but one thing they did very well was making the audience immersed in the conversation, making them committed. They're able to keep immersion by talking about broad issues that can apply to many of us. And they can fill that void that sometimes is empty in our lives because we deal with these problems, but sometimes we just don't know how to solve them. And it's all the more amazing that they're able to keep our attention with this alone, because humans usually have short attention spans, and often people usually zone out in a conversation when it gets boring or it just doesn't interest them anymore. Sure, they might listen to it, but they just forget about it, because unless it's something that's meaningful to them, they just have no reason to remember it. But when the conversation's about something that interests you, then you instantly gain the ability to talk on and on without a care for a world for hours on end if must be. Sometimes it feels like time has stopped. And that's what ReZero did. It was able to get you immersed into the conflicts of the characters and keep your attention because you're invested in the characters, because you care about how a character feels and what they're going to do. It doesn't need to further the plot in any way because it doesn't matter to you if it does or doesn't. You're already too committed into the moment to simply care about what is happening, because what you see, what you hear, is all you need right at that moment, and that's all it needs. When I first watched ReZero, I thought the show was just an isekai that had pointless gore for the sake of thrills and getting a reaction out of me. Every time I saw Subaru on the screen, I only thought about how annoying, mad, and even crazy he was. But in retrospect, I now see Subaru as a relatable character. Subaru, someone who used to be an individual filled with hate and anger. But now, all I see in him is just a beautiful tragedy. One that I can't help but empathize with. Sometimes in a story, you need to get the plot moving. You need to show the action because that's why we watch the show in the first place. That's what keeps us excited. But it's also fine to slow down once in a while because, you know, sometimes a little bit of heart is all a story needs. And that's completely fine because oftentimes that's why the story is so beautiful in the first place.